Charles Leclerc is a young gun Ferrari driver who has a promising future ahead of him, but underneath his composure is a sad story of loss and heartbreak, which helps to motivate him. What makes Leclerc's road to Formula One so tragic? How much harder did he have to work? Stay tuned to find out everything you need to know about Charles Leclerc's story. First, some background. Charles Leclerc is a genuine Monegasque. He was born in the tiny city-state of Monaco that hosts the most famous Formula One race of the year. Charles is just one of 10,000 locals from the country. While many of his Formula One colleagues now live there to avoid taxes and to be part of the glitz and glamour, Monaco is Leclerc's home. Charles' father, Hervé, and his family friend Jules Bianchi introduced Charles to karting when he was a child, and he was addicted immediately. Bianchi was already driving, and Charles was heavily influenced by him. He showed talent straight away, but the path ahead was not as simple as many of the other F1 drivers in the paddock. Leclerc didn't grow up with wealth, and he didn't have the money needed to continue a career in karting, so it was lucky for him when he was helped financially by his manager Nicolas Tott, who is the son of former FIA president Jean Tott. Nicolas Tott and his ARM management company took an interest in Charles after seeing him drive and sponsored him just as they had done for Bianchi. This allowed Charles to have a successful career in karting and even gave him the opportunity to meet the Ferrari legend Michael Schumacher, an experience he found moving. Now we get to the first tragedy of Leclerc's life. So what happened to Leclerc's role model, Jules Bianchi? Jules Bianchi was also a talented young driver. In 2007, Bianchi won Formula Renault, and then in 2008, he won Formula 3. From a young age, he had tested with the Ferrari F1 team, and in a couple of years after winning Formula 3, he officially became a reserve driver. While waiting for a Ferrari seat, he secured a contract with the short-lived team Marussia F1, and in 2014, he said that he felt ready to drive for Ferrari if the opportunity came up. Just days after saying this, Jules had a big accident. It was at the Japanese Grand Prix in Suzuka, and there was a heavy rain. On lap 42, Sauber driver Adrian Sutil crashed at turn 7, and his car was being removed. On the next lap, Jules lost control of his car at the same turn and slammed into a crane that was removing Sutil's car. His car was traveling at over 200 kilometers per hour at the time and registered 92 G-force on impact. He had suffered a severe head injury from the impact and was transported to the nearest hospital in critical condition. More than 9 months after the crash, it was announced that Bianchi had died from his injuries. Charles has said that their paths were similar even from a young age, and that Bianchi deserved the Ferrari seat more than him. Charles is motivated by winning races and titles that he thinks Bianchi was meant to win. Now we have Charles Leclerc's father. We often look to follow in our father's footsteps, and Charles was no different. His father is a big reason why Charles is a racing driver. Hervé Leclerc was a race driver who competed in Formula 3 in the 1980s and 1990s, but never broke through to the higher categories. After a different driver was selected as the driver for his local circuit, Hervé was heartbroken and ended up moving back in with his mother, who had settled near Monaco. But Hervé didn't have the money to help Charles with his career. Charles has been described as the only poor child in Monaco. He has talked about his upbringing in a working-class family and how the sport needs to try and help include drivers from more diverse backgrounds instead of being a billionaire boys club that Lewis Hamilton calls Formula One. But Hervé was able to pass on his love of racing to his sons. He took Charles to his first karting drive and was close friends with Jules Bianchi's father, Philippe Bianchi. This is how the two families know each other, and a big reason for Charles wanting to race cars for a living. It was his father and Jules who supported him and made his career possible. What is it that makes Charles so strong, and how did he go? Did he match up against Sebastian Vettel? All that is coming up, so don't go anywhere. Up next, Charles makes it to F1. Leclerc spent only one season with Alfa Romeo Sauber in 2018, but Ferrari had seen enough. He had performed strongly in all junior categories, and his consistency with Alfa Romeo convinced Ferrari to replace Kimi Räikkönen with the young Monegasque. He was partnered with veteran four-time world champion Sebastian Vettel for 2019. This would be intimidating for most young drivers, but Charles seemed to handle the pressure with ease. He was seen as a rookie in his second season, with a lot to learn, and it was unusual for Ferrari to promote such a young driver into their team. Had they made a mistake and pulled the trigger too early? Charles was only 20 years old. He couldn't even drink in an American bar yet. Others knew that age can be deceiving, including Vettel and Hamilton, who saw the potential for Leclerc to be competitive right from the start. Both of them had also entered F1 relatively young and gone straight into fighting for the world championship. Next, the rivalry with Vettel. Leclerc proved that he deserved the seat more than anyone and still surprised Vettel by consistently outperforming him. On the second race of his Ferrari career, he beat Vettel in practice, won the pole position, and overtook Vettel on the 6th lap, despite instructions not to do so. He was unlucky not to win the race after an engine failure, but still managed 3rd place. If anyone was doubting the quality of Charles and his potential, potential, they were totally silenced after Bahrain. That second race in Bahrain was the beginning of a fierce rivalry between Vettel and Leclerc in the 2019 and 2020 seasons. The two finished pretty evenly throughout the first half of the season, and then Charles managed to win 2 races in a row. One of them was at Spa in Belgium, on the same weekend his friend Antoine Hubert died there in an accident. After that, there was controversy in Singapore. Leclerc had won pole position and had a good startup until lap 20 when he was called into the pits a lap after Vettel. This is known as an undercut and can often result in the driver pitting first, leapfrogging a car in front. Leclerc said on the team radio to his engineer that he felt it unfair. Then, at the Brazilian Grand Prix, the two collided as Vettel was trying to overtake Leclerc. Going into the first turn, Vettel got ahead of Leclerc's car before cutting back to try and stay ahead. The two cars made contact and forced them both to retire with damage. The 2020 season had much less drama because Ferrari's car was much less competitive. Leclerc finished the season 8th and Vettel down in 13th place, but it was clear Ferrari was now focused on Charles. Now we have Carlos Sainz, a new teammate. Vettel had a messy divorce with Ferrari. Charles was clearly the up-and-comer to beat, and the team were starting to put their long-term hopes on him. There was a split in the team, and the communication broke down. By the end of his time there, it was clear that Sebastian was ready to leave. But who would replace him? Ferrari eventually decided on Carlos Sainz Jr., a driver who had proven himself as consistent and reliable. This was a different kind of pressure for Leclerc. He had raced against Vettel, the veteran who was losing his edge, but now he had a teammate closer to his age with the same ambitions to win a world championship. From the pay disparity and public statements from Ferrari, it was clear that Carlos was hired as a number 2 driver. In 2021, Carlos outscored Charles in points. This could be a problem for Ferrari, especially because this year their car looks very competitive. Mercedes and Red Bull have both said that Ferrari looks dangerous, and it makes sense. They announced last year that they would not be developing the 2021 Ferrari car anymore so that they could focus on the 2022 car. Sainz is coming from a midfield team, McLaren, and we have not yet seen him with a race-winning car beneath him. Ferrari may have to forget about the Schumacher model, where the team was organized around one driver. That one driver was once Sebastian Vettel, before Charles Leclerc came along. Could it be Carlos Sainz next? Or will Sainz be a good second driver for Ferrari like Felipe Massa was for Schumacher? So what makes Charles so strong? Leclerc has been described as confident without the ego, something that he attributes to his grounding in his family. Every time Charles experiences some kind of heartbreak, it seems like he becomes even stronger. After his father died in 2017, he went on to win the Buca Grand Prix, and just before Jules Bianchi died, he won the Formula 3 German Grand Prix. The loss of these two big figures in Leclerc's life has only made him stronger, both as a person and a driver. He has said he keeps them in his thoughts, which helps to motivate him to succeed. For him, racing is in his DNA, and he races for his family. That's a pretty strong motivator. That's all for today. See you next time.